Hello, my friends and beauties. Welcome back into the channel. I'm so glad you guys are here with me, and we have some little chicky-doos and some little bunnies and some smiley faces looking at all you beauties as we are upon Easter. My friends, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are new, thank you so much for being here with me today. We are going to go back to the basics and make some stretch bracelets. And we're going to do a good old-fashioned tutorial style today. So if you are new to making stretch bracelets, this will be a great video for you. If you are already a pro at making stretch bracelets, then just sit back, relax, enjoy the video, and maybe a few little refreshers for you. Nonetheless, my friends, stretch bracelets, you know me, I love them. I love to mix, match, and stack. And we are going to use the makings of my Canyon Waterfalls collection today. These are a lot of the beads that came from my March sparkle bag. But you can use any beads. I've already made a couple. I'm going to bring them over and show you. And we're going to get into the materials in a minute. So I'm intending to stack these beauties. They are so great. Really designed to wear all year round. Now, they could be spring inspired because they certainly go now, right? But these are going to go all year round. So one thing I'm using, friends, are these really cool tube curved beads. That was a tongue twister. And these are a really fun acrylic bead. They are designed to look like a gemstone. And what's cool about them is they're curved, right? So you could use a whole section of these for a bracelet, or just one, such as I've done here on this one. And I'll show you what that looks like. They are so fantastic, and I just really love the way that looks. So I have them in several colors. I'm going to do another bracelet with you today using this color. It's in like a beautiful salmon. And so we're going to make my fourth bracelet to stack with this gorgeous set. So let's get into material, shall we? So I'm going to use some stretch material today in a 0.5 millimeter. Now, let me get it off the spool here, and let's get started with my method to madness. Now, there's a lot of great tutorials out there to show you how to make stretch bracelets. A lot of really great techniques and different ways to get to your end result. But this is my tried and true technique, so hopefully you enjoy this. And I'll tell you what I am using. So I'm using 0.5 millimeter, and I'm going to double it, okay? That is my preference, and that is my go-to. Now, I get so many questions about this on the stretch, the diameter. So I'm going to take an opportunity to address that right now. If you are using a 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 millimeter, okay, and you do not want to double it, you do not have to. The reason I double my thinner stretch cord, right, is because it makes it stronger, right, and it's less chance of breakage. Now, I sometimes use a 1 millimeter, okay, and you can do that too. But most of the time I use a 5.5, 0.6, 0.7, and I double it, and it's just what I do. You know, there's really no right and wrong, but that is what I do for my bracelets. The other thing that I do that's a real nifty, fun little trick is I use a piece of bead stringing wire here, and it's just a couple inch piece here, and I fold it in half, right? And we can use this as a needle if you don't have the collapsible needle. If you've got some bead stringing wire, this works perfectly fine. Okay, so I have that. And then I just have some flush cutters, or grab a pair of scissors. That's all you're going to need. And as a rule of thumb, friends, what I'll typically do is I will use the 0.5 and double it, because most of my beads are going to go through it. So I always say or suggest, choose your wire or whatever stringing material you're going to use that goes through your beads the tightest, right? With the tightest fit. So it's less abrasion, less resistance on the inside, right? That is why I double my 0.5. Okay, so if you were using a 1 millimeter, then you wouldn't need to double it. Okay, and then let me tell you what I do for my measuring. So what I do is I'll grab the end here, okay, and I'll put it right there, kind of hold it any way I can. And I'm just gonna go around my wrist 1 and then 2 times, okay? And the reason I go around 2 times is it's really gonna be like more like 3 times, because this is 2 and this is like a half, right? And by the time we pre-stretch it, we'll have plenty enough doubling it, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and cut that off. Brand, by the way, guys, it does not really matter that much. Use what you like. There's Opalon, there's Stretch Magic, there's all kind of stretch cord out there. I'm kind of indifferent, it's just really your preference. So I'm not so concerned about brand. So look, as you find one that's really good, you like, then that's what you use. Notice what I'm doing here now. That's my second step after I've cut my length, is I'm pre-stretching. I've said this over and again. This is a very, very important step in making our stretch bracelets, because that helps them to prematurely stretch out. And what I mean by that is, if you do not pre-stretch your stretch cord, you would have a higher likelihood of, in just a very short time, when wearing your bracelets and they're on your wrist, they'll look like this, right? Without pulling your beads, that's how they'll look on the wrist. You'll have sections, showing through. And there's my knot. Let me push that back in my bead. The other thing, guys, I do not do is I do not glue, but you can use some GS Hypo if you want, but I do my surgeon's knot, and I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes here. Okay, so we've got that good and pre-stretched, right? We just tugged on it a couple times. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, okay? And I will marry up my tails here. And I do string from the loop part. So now it's folded in half. Here's my tails. I'm over here and I have a loop. And that's where I would either put this through your collapsible needle, okay? Or we will just slip that right on that makeshift needle here that we've made. And now we're ready to string. And the reason, again, that I do that is because of the way that I tie them off. And I will show you that in a few minutes. So I am going to start with this tube bead. And that's because it has a nice, generous hole, right? And I always recommend start and finish, or start or finish with your largest hole bead. And that way you can hide your knot nicely, okay? So I'm going to feed that on there. And so again, use any beads, my friends. I have the tube bead, which is about 37 millimeter. These are 6 millimeter frost and 4 millimeter rondelles and some 6 millimeter rondelles. That is what I am working with. So notice when I'm putting my smaller beads on, okay, you may have to force it down, but it really wasn't that difficult, and it's doubled, right? So we're just going to go ahead and feed our beads on, and then, of course, let them just slide on down the cording as we go. Okay, so I have all my beads on. Now, here is how I know I'm done, and the next step I do in completing my stretch bracelets. So I will remove my makeshift needle here, and I'm going to put that loop around my finger so I don't lose that. We don't want to lose that loop, right? And here's how I know I'm done. I have the loop on my finger, right? And then I'm holding the tails over here, right? Where the beads are. Now, the last bead. Now, you could also use a bead stopper here, right? And here's what I'll do. I'll kind of like try to hold it in one hand like this. I'm going to put it over my wrist. And then what I want to do is I want to go like this, right, and wrap it around without pulling on it. And I really, what I'm looking for is for my bracelet to overlap by a bead. Okay, so I know it's kind of hard to tell on this curved bead, but it is overlapping right there by that aqua bead by what would be like only like one bead right there, right? And that is perfect. So now I know I'm done. So what you don't want is you don't want to stop when you're like, if you're right here. Okay, you do want to overlap by like one bead. Okay, that's important because as we tie this bracelet up and knot it up, it will shrink a bit, right? So now this is what we have. Okay, let me put these other things out of the way. Okay, so here's what we have. We have our loop and we have our tails. What I'm going to do now is grab this loop, and again, hold it between my fingers. I am then going to grab these tails and separate one from the other, right? And I am going to put one of these tails and grab it and put it right through my loop, just like this. Okay, so you see how that loop went through this one strand? I'm going to put my ends back together, okay? And then now this is what we have, right? I'm going to keep hold of these tails. I'm not going to let these tails go. And what I want to do now is I'm going to flip this away from me to where the loop is on the top here, okay? And I'm going to start to push all my beads down to where they meet this loop. And then what you'll see what will happen is, so now I pushed my beads down, right? And now I can pull the loop down, right? That's all we're trying to do. Really super simple. And so that's what we have, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my surgeon's knots. So I am going to also let gravity be my friend here, meaning I'm going to pick it up off the mat and let it swing whichever way it wants to swing as I'm knotting. So the first thing I'm going to do is an overhand knot. So on the right side here, I'm going to pull this from the back to the front, okay? And that's what I had, just a regular knot. Now I'm going to take this left tail and I'm going to push it through the loop from the front to the back. That gives you your triple knot, or in other words, a surgeon's knot. You see that there? Okay? And then we're going to go let gravity get involved, and we're going to go ahead and let's pull. And now we're not going to pull it too tight, but every time we make a knot, I like to pull it a little tighter. The second thing I do is crisscross, right? Crisscross applesauce. I put my tails underneath, going the opposite way. So I'm just going to literally grab these tails. Okay, you see this? And look, I'm just grabbing them and pulling them in the opposite way. Underneath and back to the top. Also making sure I'm staying right there where my knot is. Okay? We're going to come to the top and let's do it again. So we can do anywhere between 3 and 5 knots. Okay? So overhand knot with the right cord. Okay? The left cord now here, I'm going to push from the front to the back. Okay? So I just made now a surgeon's knot right there. Okay? And then we'll pull it. And then as we get closer, we'll pull it off the workspace and tug on it. Same thing again. We're going to put these tails underneath and crisscross them, pulling them to the opposite sides and back to the top. Now, we're going to do the same thing again. We'll do an overhand knot here on the right cord. And then on the left cord, I'm going to push that to the back, from the front to the back. So my cords just basically went in opposite directions through that loop, and we'll pull. And let's remember, friends, that, you know, stretch material, or stretch jewelry, I meant to say, pardon me, is not permanent jewelry, right? But if you can get a couple of years, you know, out of your bracelets, you know, then you're in good shape. You're in good shape. So just remember that. That's why I don't glue my knots. You know, you can use some GS Hypo if you want. Go ahead and glue your knots with some GS Hypo 100% if that's your vibe. You want to glue your knots, and that's fine. But I'm just going to keep doing my tried and true technique, because I know over time my bracelets will need to be redone after a couple of years. Mine lasts about a good, 5+ years, something like that. So just bear that in mind, my friends. It's not permanent jewelry, right? So, but you can glue your knots if you want. So I just made about 5 surgeon's knots. There they all are right there, okay? And now what I'll do is, if I wanted to glue, I would kind of like hold your knot and pull a little bit. Grab your GS Hypo, put a little bit of glue right here if you'd like to. And if not, we'll just trim it. And notice where I'm trimming? About 1/4 of an 1/8 of an inch away there. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch. we'll go ahead and trim those tails off. And our knot will disappear in our beads over time, or we can force it through. So I can take this side over here. There's my knot, and I can pull it on through. And now there it is. I can pull it a little more and force it in that bead. So now it's tucked away. We shall not see it again. And that's what I have. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. Revisiting some basics, some stretch bracelets. How fun for spring is this, right guys? Like, I'm just saying, we stack them, we mix them, we match them. I love this so much. This whole Southwest Vibe palette is just a vibe. I love this. Many of you, by the way, have been making stretch bracelets and posting my community tab out of this bag. Thank you guys for inspiring me, because you inspired me to do another tutorial on some stretch. So I hope you found today's tutorial helpful, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And until the next one, my friends, keep sparkling and be blessed.